Good morning/afternoon, everyone. I'm so grateful to be here with you today, talking about something that is at the core of our well-being, our connection with others, and our growth as individuals, being true to ourselves. We live in a world that constantly tells us who we should be, what we should look like, and how we should behave. The pressure to meet those external expectations can be overwhelming, and it's easy to get lost in the noise. But here's the thing: when we choose to be true to ourselves, to honor our own values, to show up authentically, we unlock the greatest power we have: our vulnerability. Vulnerability is courage. I'm going to start by saying something that might sound counterintuitive. Vulnerability is not weakness. Vulnerability is the birthplace of courage. It's through being vulnerable, being honest about our fears, our imperfections, our desires, that we become who we are meant to be. It's through showing up as our true selves, even when it feels terrifying, that we build the connections that matter. Brené Brown teaches us that vulnerability is the very thing that enables us to be seen for who we really are, to live authentically, and to form deep, meaningful relationships. But let me be clear, vulnerability doesn't mean we have to share everything all the time with everyone. It means we give ourselves permission to stop pretending, to stop performing. We give ourselves permission to simply be. And that takes immense courage. Authenticity as the foundation of self-respect. Now, let's talk about authenticity. Authenticity is being aligned with your true self. It's when your actions, thoughts, and feelings are consistent with your values. When we're authentic, we no longer need to wear masks or seek approval from others. Authenticity doesn't mean we won't make mistakes or experience challenges. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It's about recognizing that our imperfections and mistakes are part of our human journey. Being authentic means recognizing what truly matters to you and living in accordance with those principles. It's not easy, and it's certainly not always popular, but being true to yourself, even when it's uncomfortable, is what gives you the strength to navigate life's complexities with confidence and clarity. Understanding shame uh, uh, versus guilt. Another important aspect of being true to yourself is recognizing the difference between shame and guilt. Shame tells us that we are unworthy, broken, or not enough. It's an emotion that can keep us from connecting with ourselves and others. On the other hand, guilt is a signal that we've done something wrong and that we have the ability to make things right. Guilt is constructive, while shame is destructive. So we need to cultivate the awareness to separate the two. When we make mistakes, and we all will, we should feel guilty about the action, not about who we are. Guilt is a way to learn and grow, but shame only serves to keep us stuck in self-doubt and fear, letting go of external expectations. One of the most challenging aspects of being true to yourself is letting go of the need to meet external expectations. We all want to be liked, we want to fit in, and we want to make others happy. But here's the harsh truth: you can't be everything to everyone. And when you're constantly trying to live up to someone else's idea of who you should be, you lose sight of who you really are. Um, it's only when we release that pressure and stop trying to fit into a mold that we discover our own worth, independent of others' opinions. The moment you choose to prioritize your own values over the expectations of others, you free yourself to be who you were always meant to be. And that freedom is priceless. Embracing perfection. We're often told that we must be perfect to be worthy of love and success, but perfection is an illusion. Perfection doesn't exist, and in striving for it, we only hold ourselves back. Embracing imperfection is not about accepting failure, but about accepting ourselves, flaws, mistakes, and all. Ooh. When we allow ourselves to be imperfect, we create space for growth, learning, and connection. In embracing our imperfections, we also invite others to do the same, creating a culture of acceptance and empathy, of self-compassion. And finally, let's talk about self-compassion. To be true to ourselves, we must practice self-compassion. This means being kind to ourselves when we fall short, when we make mistakes, or when life doesn't go as planned. Self compassion is not about letting ourselves off the hook for harmful behavior. It's about acknowledging our pain, forgiving ourselves, and giving ourselves the grace to learn and grow. The beauty of self compassion is that it strengthens us, it helps us bounce back from setbacks. It allows us to approach life's challenges with resilience and an open heart. Um, in conclusion, being true to yourself isn't a destination, it's a lifelong practice. It's about having the courage to be vulnerable, the wisdom to embrace your imperfections, and the strength to let go of external expectations. It's about showing up as your authentic self, imperfections and all, and giving yourself the space to grow. So today, I encourage you to take a deep breath and ask yourself, what would it look like if I were truly unapologetically myself? Start there. That is the first step toward living a life of true fulfillment and connection. Vulnerability is often misunderstood as a weakness, something that makes us fragile or exposed to harm. But in reality, vulnerability is the foundation of courage and strength. It is through vulnerability that we experience the deepest connections with ourselves and others. It is when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable that we stop hiding. Being vulnerable means embracing the uncertainty of life, allowing ourselves to experience the full range of human emotions, both the highs and the lows. It means stepping into situations where we don't have all the answers, where we might fail or be judged, yet choosing to move forward anyway. Brene Brown, a leading researcher on vulnerability, calls it showing up and being seen. This is not about being perfect or having it all figured out. It's about accepting our imperfections and showing the world who we truly are, even if we are afraid. When we choose vulnerability, we are choosing to be honest with ourselves and others about our fears, hopes, desires, and limitations. It's about saying, I am human and I don't have to be invincible to be worthy of love and connection. In a world that often encourages us to put up walls, to hide our weaknesses, vulnerability is an act of rebellion. It's the courage to let others in, to ask for help when we need it, and to trust that despite the risk of hurt, we are worthy of belonging. The courage to be vulnerable allows us to connect on a deeper level with those around us. When we share our struggles and fears openly, we create space for others to do the same. We realize that we are not alone in our imperfections and that shared vulnerability leads to empathy and understanding. It is this deep human connection that allows us to grow, heal, and ultimately thrive. Hmm. By embracing vulnerability, we also open the door to our own personal growth. We make room for creativity, learning, and resilience. It is through vulnerability that we find the strength to take risks, try new things, and overcome obstacles. Without it, we would remain stuck in a cycle of fear and self doubt. So, vulnerability is not a weakness, it's the very thing that empowers us to live a fuller, more authentic life. Authenticity is about aligning your actions with your values, being true to yourself, regardless of external pressures or societal expectations. It's the act of showing up in the world as you truly are, not as a version of yourself that you think others want to see. When you live authentically, you honor your own beliefs and feelings, and you act from a place of self respect and integrity. At its core, authenticity is about self-awarenessness. It requires us to take a hard look at what truly matters to us and to make decisions that reflect those values, even when it's uncomfortable or goes against the grain. Living authentically doesn't mean we won't make mistakes or experience challenges, but it means we'll do so while staying true to who we are. It's about choosing honesty over conformity and vulnerability over perfection. In a world that constantly tells us who we should be, being authentic can be a radical act. It's easy to get caught up in trying to fit in, to seek validation from others, or to chase external markers of success. But when we lose sight of our true selves in this pursuit, we end up feeling disconnected, unfulfilled, and anxious. Authenticity, however, is the antidote to this disconnection. It allows us to show up in our lives fully present, knowing that we are enough as we are. Living authentically is also a key to building deeper, more meaningful relationships. When we are ourselves, we give others permission to be themselves too. It creates space for mutual respect and understanding, leading to stronger connections built on honesty and trust. Authenticity is not only an act of self-respect, but a way of inviting others to do the same. And that creates the foundation for true belonging.
The cost of people pleasing is far greater than many of us realize. It can seem harmless at first, just a way to keep the peace, to avoid confrontation, or to make sure others like us. But over time, the habit of constantly trying to meet others' expectations can lead to exhaustion, confusion, and a profound sense of disconnection from our true selves. We begin to lose sight of who we really are because we are too busy molding ourselves to fit into what we think others want or need. People pleasing is an attempt to gain approval by sacrificing our authenticity, our boundaries, and often our well being. We say yes when we mean no, we overcommit, and we suppress our needs to keep others happy. But in doing so, we disconnect from our own values and desires. We end up living for others rather than ourselves, constantly trying to measure up to an ideal that may not even be ours to begin with. Over time, this takes a toll. We experience burnout because we are running on empty, trying to fulfill everyone else's needs while ignoring our own. We feel anxious because we are never sure if we're doing enough, and we're constantly second-guessing ourselves. And most damaging of all, we begin to feel unworthy, as if our value is determined by how much we can please others. The truth is that when we prioritize other people's needs over our own at the expense of our authenticity, we lose the most important connection of all, the one we have with ourselves. The ability to say no or to set boundaries is not only healthy, it's necessary for preserving our sense of self. We cannot pour from an empty cup, and until we stop negotiating who we are for the approval of others, we'll never fully feel whole. You said. Expand the fourth keynote without headings and intro of keynote up to 300 words. ChatGPT said. ChatGPT boundaries are not just about setting limits with others, they are a way of protecting our own sense of self and emotional well being. When we fail to establish and honor boundaries, we risk losing our identity in the process. Healthy boundaries help us maintain our integrity by ensuring that we are not constantly overextending ourselves to meet the needs of others at the expense of our own needs. They are a form of self-respect and an essential tool for navigating the demands of relationships, work, and even our inner dialogue. Setting boundaries is not about being selfish, it's about recognizing our own worth and acknowledging that we have the right to prioritize our mental, emotional, and physical health. When we allow others to overstep our limits, whether it's by taking up too much of our time, pushing us to compromise on our values, or demanding more than we can give, we end up feeling drained and resentful. This can lead to frustration, burnout, and even a deep sense of disconnection from ourselves. By setting boundaries, we are choosing to honor our needs and values. It's about having the courage to say no when something doesn't align with what's best for us. It's recognizing that we are not responsible for other people's happiness or well-being, and that it's okay to prioritize our own peace of mind. In fact, when we respect our boundaries, we teach others to do the same, and we model healthy, sustainable ways of relating to others. Boundaries also help us cultivate self-compassion. They remind us that we are worthy of the space, time, and energy we need to thrive. Without boundaries, we run the risk of losing touch with who we truly are. But with them, we protect our authenticity and ensure that we can show up as our whole selves in every area of our lives. You said. Expand the fifth keynote without headings and intro of keynote up to 300 words. ChatGPT said. CHATGPD shame and guilt often work hand in hand, but they are very different emotions. Guilt can be a constructive emotion. It tells us when we've made a mistake or acted in a way thought